Cool.
Okay.
All right. Well, in that case, welcome to the very first Leading AI podcast. This is going to be experimental. So welcome, Kieran. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Neil Watkins. This is my good friend, Kieran White. I was thinking today, Kieran, that it's nearly 30 years since we first met. Now, I know that you think you're only 34, but the reality is we're both pretty old fella. But I think it's a remarkable testament to us that we've managed to stay not just very good friends over the last 30 years, but we've managed to work on lots of interesting businesses together. And leading AI is no exception. And as you rightly point out, I think it's probably the best job I've ever had. And you've had too, because we're having a lot of fun doing this. And it made me think about what we should talk about today. So I thought I'd start with a little bit of history just so that people understood where leading AI came from. And then I want to talk about some of the customers that we've talked to in the last week. And the idea for the podcast really is that AI is changing so quickly, if not daily, then definitely weekly. There's always something new and different and challenging going on. We talk about this all the time internally, but we don't share enough out to the rest of the world. So a podcast seemed like a sensible way of doing that. Lots of people think you need fancy cameras, fancy lighting, fancy microphones, and all of that old nonsense. But I don't have any of that stuff. So we're just going to do it in proper Kieran and Neil style, and we're gonna blag it from here on in, fella. So that's the plan.
Perfect.
Um,
Sounds like a good plan.
well,
And
it's definitely a plan. I'm not sure about good, but it's definitely a plan. So let's see where let's see where we get to. So I thought we'd start with a little bit of history. So the history of leading AI started in a Korean restaurant in Soho in December 2022, when Kieran got out his phone and he showed us around the table OpenAI ChatGPT 3.5, I think it was at the time. And we went, my God, that's amazing. And it really was at the time. But looking back now, it feels like so Mickey Mouse. But it was really interesting at the time, and the group around the table kind of, oh, we should think about how we might be able to do something with this AI stuff. And we talked about it for a couple of months. We didn't really do very much about it. What Kieran and I did was book an AI conference in Las Vegas. Now, some people will say it's just because we wanted to go to Vegas for a few days. It just so happened that it was the biggest AI conference in the world. I'm not sure it still is, but it's still pretty big. But just before we went, a chap called Donald, Big D, as we affectionately know him as, Big D came to see us and said, I've been playing with this private chat GPT stuff, making AI secure. I think there's a real opportunity in it. And we said, well, let's go to Vegas and see what it occurs. And Vegas was nuts. I mean, it was a bonkers event. I think at the time there was something like 2,500 people. Last year it attracted 8,000. So it's a huge event. But we came back from that thinking, there is clearly a massive opportunity, but we're not quite sure what it is and how it works. And I think at the time, what we saw were a lot of people talking about stuff we didn't understand, like you need to structure your vector database like this, and we didn't even know what a vector database was at the time. So it was been an interesting learning curve. Anyway, we came back from Vegas and talked to Big D, and in September of 2023, we set up Leading AI, and we've been obviously going ever since. Here we are, 2.5 years later. There's a couple of interesting things that I wanted to share with you, because it's been a bit of a roller coaster, really. Just to bring us up to date, today we got confirmation from our 49th customer that they want to go ahead, which is delightful. And I was talking earlier this week to a serial entrepreneur, millionaire, who's invested in lots of different businesses and still does in lots of different businesses. And I told him we were at 48 customers. He said, that's bloody brilliant. Most people in AI businesses don't have any customers or have got one or two of their mates. They haven't actually got fee-paying annual recurring revenues from customers, and you should make more of that. And I thought that's a really interesting point.
interesting.
I didn't realize that there were so few people actually trying to make this stuff work, but it also led me to think about something else. I did a little search on our 42,001, our ISO 42001 AI certification. And according to Perplexity, the number of UK companies currently is in the tens. It's not in the hundreds. There's no official number of 42,001 secured organized or certified organizations. So we must have been one of the very first, because we got certified last April. So we've been going nearly a year.
I think we were the first
without...
one that the assessor had done when we
Oh, really?
The people we worked with, yeah.
Oh, cool. Well, and I thought about that because I know you and a bunch of other of the team were on an ISO meeting earlier today.
We were indeed, yes. The joy of our monthly ISO, reviewing all of our data security protocols, making sure we're ship shape and above board. But it isn't my most fun meeting, as you can imagine, because it's a whole lot of process. But it's important process, so we must.
It is. And to make it easier, we've created an AI tool that helps with the whole thing. So nobody will be surprised to hear that we've created our own AI tool to make that stuff work. So it is really important, I think, because you hear lots of nonsense or read lots of nonsense on the internet about AI and people talking about AI security. And actually, shadow AI is still one of the biggest issues for most organizations. And indeed, we know of a legal firm that is basically using ChatGPT to put their private customer confidential information in. It's absolutely bonkers, but they think it gets good results and they don't think they're going to be in any trouble. I suspect they might well be in the future, but yeah, I'm sure you've got lots of other stories of people doing dumb stuff like that as well.
Well, I always say to people, just put into ChatGPT, ask it about your strategy or something that it probably shouldn't know, and just see what it does know already. What's the figure? It's something like 70% of organizations, this is a 2-year-old figure as well, isn't it? 70% of organizations think they have shared something they shouldn't have.
Yeah.
And of course, as you know, that can become part of ChatGPT's training forever. Even if it doesn't, it processes in the US, it can at least. And that isn't allowed for any of our customers, at least in our public sector customers.
No.
Yeah.
I suspect it's much higher than 70% is the honest truth, but yeah, but it's very hard to get any kind of reasonable data or reliable data on that kind of thing, is there? There were 3 things that happened this week that I thought were interesting and worth chatting about. You probably got some things on your list as well, but there were 3 things that I wanted to talk about. The first was an example of using our bid writer tool, where we helped an organization both compress the time but also increase the quality. I'll talk a little bit about that. The second piece I wanted to chat about was Copilot and the challenges of enterprise-wide solutions, because lots of people have bought Copilot licenses. But I think it might have been the week before last when Microsoft data came out where something like only 3.5% of all Copilot pilots turn into paid gigs, which is incredible, especially given their estimated $31 billion investment in Copilot. So how are they going to make a return on that? It's going to be an interesting challenge.
I think the thing I'm more surprised by is even Microsoft's own, I guess, marketing research-based work will talk about saving 10% of time or something with using Copilot. And I just think, surely, I mean, some of our stuff is way more time saving than that, the more specialist things we build. But I'm quite surprised that even with their kind of, presumably with their best foot forward, trying to tell you the very best thing, it's something like 7 to 10% time savings.
Yeah.
The reality of that, as you know, the challenge all organizations have is none of that is cashable savings. That's about making your job a bit better, and great, and well-being is an important thing, and staff retention is an important thing. But at the end of the day, 7 to 10% of your staff's time is another coffee or two, isn't it? It's not
that's right.
transformational, wow, look what we've done with AI. So good start, but like first half step, I'd say.
Yeah. And then the third thing I wanted to talk about was the cross-sector nature of things that we're doing. And interestingly, I might just start there because it's a real quick one, but we've been going, as I said, 2.5 years, and we've talked to lots of people over that time. We've not taken any external investment, but we have talked to external people. And lots of people have said, oh, your real challenge is you're too you're too broad, you're too vague. You need to go deep in one particular area. And we do have some areas like social care, both children and adult social care for local authorities, and housing associations and FE colleges. But this week, I was thinking about people that we've talked to. We've talked to an IT company. We've talked to at least two new housing associations. We've talked to two procurement organisations. We've talked to at least two that I know of, local authorities, a university, four FE colleges, and
Awarding body.
an awarding body, and bizarrely, maybe not bizarrely, but interestingly, a company that writes TV scripts, and they want to use
Yeah.
AI for things like continuity, which is fantastic. So really interesting broad mix. And I think if we had focused just in one area, we would have missed a trick. And actually, part of our challenge, or the challenge that we chose to bring right in the early days, was AI as a force for good. There's lots of doom mongering, and actually, how do we help people use AI in a sensible, proactive, helpful way? And I think I don't know about you, but I kind of appreciate the fact that we haven't gone deep, we've gone wide, and I think we should stick with being wide for quite. Although I don't want to get known as wide boys, of course, for quite some time.
Well, I think the challenge we have though, like I mean, we've talked about this a lot, haven't we? Is how do you market effectively when you are talking to all people about many or all things? It is a real challenge because our platform, Knowledge Flow, is an incredibly capable AI platform that can be your policy assistant, your bid writing assistant, your data analytics assistant. It can be your corporate memory. It can
Mm,
read it. It can respond to your customer inquiries inbox. All of those things it's capable of doing. And the problem is that's too much for a marketing campaign. And you end up saying, talking about generic AI is good, isn't it? Come and talk to us, which is obviously not that useful. There's a real battle in how do you get an interest of people, because that probably is a specific hit them with the thing they're worrying or frustrated about, and then potentially lead on from there. But I mean, yeah, as you say, we wouldn't know what those things are without all the work we've done with our customers on
that's
talking
right.
to them about what's on their mind, what challenges them.
Yeah.
So
And the bit that you talk about when you're on stage, especially at things like housing, but also at schools and others, is actually you bring cross-fertilization of ideas, and this sector's doing X and this sector's doing Y, and here's how you could adapt it for your sector. And I think if we had stayed deep, then we would have missed a real trick with some of that stuff, because you know, one thing all organizations have in common is people, and people do different things, and they're creative. And why, we talk about R&D, rob and duplicate, take those ideas and use them elsewhere. And I think we should continue to do that. Absolutely.
yeah, no, absolutely.
The
And I
second thing.
interestingly on narrow or deep, I was having a conversation earlier today with Perplexity, in fact, one of my favorite go-to tools, on how we can get our message, our platform in front of more housing association
Hmm,
folk, because we've got, as you know, a number of them that we're working with, but we really want to expand that out and bring it to a much wider part of the sector, all of the sector, we would say. And interestingly, where it was helping me, as always, if you use AI as a thought partner, I find that particularly useful. But it
hmm.
was suggesting that I should find a single problem that a target person in a housing association has, and go on that first off. So that was quite interesting to me. I think that probably will have a crack at that for a
And
while.
we've talked a little bit about that before, your comments about repairs. Every housing association has to deal with repairs. It's a common problem, and actually, it's one of those things that costs them a lot of money. It's important to get right for not just cost saving, but also tenant satisfaction, if that's the correct terminology in that sector. How do you keep people, safe, warm, dry, and happy? Those are challenges for them. And actually, how can AI do that? And I know that you've pulled together something that you're gonna be sharing at Scotland's Housing Festival on the 4th
Indeed.
of March. There you go. There's a plug for you, the Chartered Institute of Housing. So yeah, I know that's going to be interesting. But it also it also kind of leads on to why some of those co-pilot things are real challenging for organizations, and where we've seen organizations struggle with that enterprise-wide solution, because what Copilot's doing is looking right across the piece, and it's not being specific enough, and it produces very generic, average kind of results that aren't helpful. And I was talking to a local authority who invested in Copilot license. So, and they were shifting 25% of their entire Copilot licenses to new people because the existing people didn't use them. The story I was going to mention was that a person had started a new job for an organization and been invited along with 27 others to a Copilot training session. It was a prompting session, actually, which makes a lot of sense because people are well known for prompting like their Google. And so they do it, they prompt like their Google search, and it's not, they don't do what you were talking about just a few minutes ago about using Perplexity as your thought partner. And the point of the story was that only 4 people out of the 28 actually turned up for the training. It made me think about, why is that? Is it just because they are too busy? Are they just not interested? Do they not see it as part of their job? Or are they worried about AI? You see lots of people saying they're worried about AI taking jobs, but I don't quite see it that way. What do you think?
No, I mean, it's really interesting because we see across all of our customers, there's some that are prolific users, and the most successful customer that we have, Ambition Institute, I'm sure they won't mind being named. They have more than 2/3 of their staff using our tools every month. And what we see when we look at the usage numbers is that it never drops. The number of users per month only goes one way. So it appears that as soon as people are using it, are introduced to knowledge flow, they stay with it because they see the benefits, obviously, because they're not being forced to use it every month, they're choosing to. And I think, I mean, what I know happened there, their technology director went to a bunch of their team meetings and sort of forced hands-on keyboards, if you like, saying, open this, put what is it you do, show me something that's nasty or administrative heavy, and
Yeah,
let me show, or let you show you, I'll tell you how to, look, upload it here, do this thing there, and it will help you. And that, her approach, I think, has been tremendous. But what I'm struck by, and a kind of deeper thought about, really about staff, our background is change management, change and transformation. It's how I met Neil many moons ago, and we built a successful consultancy doing that. And I think that my observation from all of that is, if you looked at an organization broadly, and this is anecdotal, so it's not specifics, about 20% of the staff are what you might call entrepreneurial minded. They want they want to think about how they can improve the way they do their job and how the organization can improve the way it works.
mm,
I think you've got the kind of bottom end 20% that literally want to come in at 9 o'clock and go home at 5 o'clock and are not that interested in anything other than just they'll go along and turn the handle. And the middle ground that seemed to me to be, do the job and might be really quite committed and interested and passionate, but haven't got any capacity. And you can take that in its widest sense of what I mean by that definition of capacity there, to think about their improving their role.
mm,
And I think that's maybe what's behind not turning up to AI sessions. I think it's certainly what's behind people not using AI in their role quite a lot. I think people are given Copilot and say, there you go, there's our AI strategy. You've got a
yeah,
Copilot. They do that first thing, which we've all tried, and normally it's pretty disappointing because whatever you've asked it to do, you probably haven't asked it very well, and it
yeah,
does a pretty half-assed job.
yeah,
And therefore you're put off and you don't go back to it. So I think there's that, but the curiosity. I mean, even with our tools, I see when I go and talk to our customers about how they're getting on, and explore new areas we can go into with them. They're doing stuff with knowledge flow that we hadn't even imagined. Those people that are in that kind of 20% of testing, experimenting, and up for it.
okay,
So really interesting. I mean, I don't know what it all means really, but I think the big lesson is the technology director from Ambition Institute. She has been demonstrating properly, not just writing about it, not just showing it, getting people hands on keyboards using it, and it is hugely successful. and they're saving, as you know, I think we did a report for them on 2025, and I think they're saving, what was it, something like 250 days a month or something they're saving across their organization.
Wow.
Again, not cashable, and neither should it be right now, but really interesting.
Yeah. Well, that kind of leads on to something that potentially is cashable, which is the bid writer. I mentioned earlier that we'd used a bid writer for a procurement organisation, and for people who aren't familiar with bid writer, it's a tool we've created which is trained on that organisation's materials, marketing materials, case studies, information, data. Things like customer reviews, all of that good stuff, and it's all in a RAG. And one of the benefits of the tool is that basically you load up the tender document and ask it, what's our chances of winning this? Is it a sensible bid for us to go for? And in this particular instance, this bid, which probably would in the past have taken at least 2 weeks, had a first credible draft within less than 2 days. And then what happened was put it through the evaluation piece and said, here's the evaluation criteria. You are a marker. Give me marks out of, it was a 0 to 8 scale. Tell me where we're doing well and tell me where we're doing badly. And it came back and it said, you're 6 out of 8 for this one, you're 8 out of 8 for this one, or you're 4 out of 8 for this one. But here's the things that you need to do. So then you can do simple things like ask it to improve it, or add in a case study, or indeed one of the things I really loved about it, there was something like 280 different customer quotes. Give me a customer quote that is specific to this particular question where we demonstrated the value to this organization. And it pulled out 3, 4, 5, however many you ask for, and you pick the one that you want. So I read the final bid this morning before it was submitted, and I have to say I was pretty delighted with it. And one of the things that I don't know if I said this already, forgive me, I've forgotten. I had a very senior ex-civil servant review the bid and compare it to the AI scoring, and she scored it exactly as the AI had scored it, which was really fascinating. Her suggestions were different, which is really interesting, and she did indeed make some very good suggestions. But so taking those two things and combining them improved the final product. And I know that lots of people say you shouldn't be using things like bid writers for writing bids. I would argue you shouldn't use free tools to write your bids, because you're going to get generic answers that everybody else is getting as well. But this was so tailored to, give me an example from this sector, or give me an example of this type of organization, which we've done in the past. And the final bid, I think it was something like 65 pages long, so it wasn't a short read, but it was a pretty impressive final result. So I've got my fingers crossed. As soon as we hear about that one, I shall be shouting about it. So
congratulations! Yeah,
very
it's finally
exciting.
in, isn't it? The bid is submitted, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, good.
Yeah.
Well, so
But it is a huge task. Most people don't, if you've never done bid writing, you don't know what a pain in the bum it is, trying to find case studies or trying to find information, or even making, adapting previous case studies. The AI can do a first draft of that within seconds and then allow you to polish that. So, really pleased with that.
I think that whole procurement world, as you know, we've talked about over many a beer through the years of the frustration, and how procurement in general already excludes really most innovation, but most small companies, medium companies are just nowhere. The amount of administrative time you have to give up to answering any kind of RFP or tender response is just enough to knock everybody out. And it's a shame, because it's the way government does nearly all of its tendering, and you'd like to think that government might be able to get hold of innovation and new stuff, and they pretty much rule it out from the start just by the amount of admin to go through. And it's a real we've been involved in a couple of things where we've been pitching for innovation funding pilots with leading AI, and the real challenge, I think, along the way is that you are judged on whether it's innovative by a panel of whoever they are. Who are they to say? I mean, it's like if you think about Steve Jobs inventing the iPhone, do you think he put to a panel to say, we're thinking of doing this? I doubt it very much.
Yeah.
It's that those breakthrough technologies are not. I mean, and it almost it's an oxymoron for innovation, isn't it? To have any kind of committee or panel look at it, there's always a reason not to do something.
Absolutely.
So yeah. Anyway, I get very frustrated about all of that. Well, I
Yeah.
think it's roll on, as I say sometimes when I'm on stage, is the sort of I talk about our bid writer, and then I also talk about some work we've done to create the other side of the house, a bid evaluator, an AI version of that to be the kind of the fifth member of the team, if you like, the sort of AI in the loop
Yeah.
on your to challenge you in a different way because
Yeah.
it is pretty objective AI generally in that space. It's not, it does have bias. We have about 400 biases apparently, according to some research I was looking at. So AI is probably a lot, well, who knows, maybe as biased as us or whatever. But that getting AI in the loop on there, and then I normally talk about we're not very far away from being able to have AI just do the procurement. How I normally describe it is kind of at the moment, procurement is a really dysfunctional process, in my opinion, because at the start of it, you have a human trying to capture the requirements of an organization for whatever it is they're trying to procure, a new HR system or whatever. So they'll go and look at all the things they think and then write all those up into some sort of specification. And they'll be wrong. There'll be some right, but they'll be wrong in lots of places. Next, they send that to a list of suppliers that they hope might be able to respond to that. And they'll be wrong about the list that they've chosen. They hopefully got some of the right, but there'll be people in there they shouldn't be, and there'll be people missing.
Yep.
Next, the supplier has to read that specification, which is wrong, reply to it with how they could best match, trying to second guess what evaluators are looking for, trying to explain their strengths, and that will be a dysfunctional, wrong piece of work that comes out the end, and then it comes back to the humans in our first company who are now going to read that and judge it, and they'll be wrong in their judgment. So you got wrong, 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 and wrong through the process. You could have an AI tool that scours your network and it asks people for information on what they need from an HR system and defines the specification. It could scour the world's internet to find all of the suppliers that potentially match, evaluate them based on what is available online, potentially back and forward emails asking additional questions and follow-ups, and choose for you the best system for the best price that does the thing you need it to do. And it probably could buy it and install it if you use some of the really mad new agentic stuff. That I hope is a future, because I think at the moment this industry of procurement, which rules lots of people out, which stifles innovation, I
Yeah.
think is rife for a massive transformation and upending.
Wow. Well, that is exciting. I can imagine a lot of people not liking hearing those words from you, Mr. Wallace.
There you go. Well, they say, isn't it, all the marketing advice is to be provocative?
It is. It is. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that was certainly provocative. Have you got
Good.
anything else provocative to say this afternoon?
Well, I think I'll share with you the I was reading last week about the new open claw I think it was called Claude for about a week or a month or so maybe, and then Claude, the big Anthropic's large language model, wrote to them and said you can't keep calling yourself Claude. So they
Yeah.
changed themselves to Maltbot for about 12 hours and then OpenClaw,
Yeah.
all around lobsters apparently. Maltbot being a lobster malts apparently. So there you are. Anyway, that is this new agentic. It's agentic on steroids. It's really crazy. So agentic AI, there's a load of, as you know, loads of AI washing, where people will describe anything that our stuff. We use a thing called retrieval augmented generation. That's what we specialize in. RAG AI for our listener benefit. Our audient, as I heard it mentioned the other day, for our audient,
Excellent.
we do a thing called RAG, and that will be using your policies or your bids, as Neil has talked about, your previous proposals and things, and doing some amazing stuff with that. Loads of people are calling that agentic AI. It is not. Anytime you are copying and pasting in and out, it is not agentic. Agentic, our definition is that the definition is that it has agency, it can take action, do things. And our knowledge flow, I hinted already, can look at inboxes and read and respond to them and do all that stuff. The interested talking to Michael Webb, who's the head of AI at JISC, about the definition of agentic, sort of at its full extent, is you just give it the objective. In fact, there's an argument, you don't even do that. You just tell it, you go work out what he's doing, and off you go. And OpenClaw can do some of that stuff. And the first example, which was just fascinating before it gets dangerous, but the fascinating example was someone had asked OpenClaw to book a restaurant for them. It went to OpenTable, couldn't get a reservation on OpenTable because it was showing as full. So it installed an AI text to phone thing on the laptop. It went and found it, installed it. The guy was away, didn't even know this was happening. It phoned the restaurant, made the booking, and then put the booking in his calendar and updated him with it. It's all done. Wow. Amazing. That's proper agentic stuff. Yeah. But it has a sour twist, doesn't it? There was this guy, this guy, and I can reference it if I put it in the show notes. But
for our listener.
For our listener, yeah. And he had he had this one of his agents, an OpenClaw agent, writing some code. It sent him the code for review. He rejected it, and it then decided that it didn't like that, and so it scoured the internet, found a load of stuff about him and his job role and what he does, and put a blog post up about him saying he was protecting his fiefdom and how he was entirely wrong to reject the code, and he was just really gave him a hard time in this blog post. Wow. And it's like literally on its own just when I did that. That is crazy.
Yeah, find the reference to that. I'd be fascinated to read that.
Yeah, it's
crikey. Terrifying.
It is terrifying. And you think that, that's where the agents take over. So maybe it is important to be polite to AI tools.
Yeah, maybe.
Although, as Sam Altman says, if you could see the amount of energy and token burn that goes behind all the politeness, the real problem is, interestingly, you can say, "Please give me a." That's not really going to burn a lot of more tokens, probably 2. When you say thank you at the end of something that's happened, because every time you send in a response, everything in that context window goes back to the large language model so that it can check. And so you can literally have had a long conversation with it, and then you say thank you, and it all goes back, it's all processed, all the tokens are burnt, and then just go, "You're welcome, let me know if there's anything else I can help you with."
Yeah.
And that's cost, whatever, tiny in general terms, but the combined amount of that is huge.
Yeah. Well, there we go.
Go on, sorry.
Go ahead. No,
I was going to say, the other thing in the news that I was just reading only today is Sam Altman. He's the CEO of OpenAI, for anyone, for our listener. But he was saying that he thinks there is loads of AI washing in terms of job losses. So people, and it is really interesting, isn't it? Because there is this moment where people are saying, "I'm getting rid of Amazon biggest 30,000 people that they are going to make redundant," and they're saying, AI is going to take over. The reality is, it's not because of AI taking over. They need the money, in Amazon's case, to invest, is what the pundits say. But organizations are using it as a good news story for why you're making job cuts, which is, I guess, particularly if you have shareholders and publicly listed, then that's a nice get out, isn't it? Rather than we're struggling, things aren't going well, we have to do a redundancy round. You're able to spin it the other way. And Sam Altman's view is the job losses are not caused by AI; they are caused by executives using it as an excuse.
Yeah. I'd heard somebody else say something similar, that it's more indicative of underlying poor performance rather than anything else, rather than the investment in technology or it transforming. And I guess that kind of rhymes with a bunch of things that we've seen. Even in our small world where we don't deal with the multi-billion-dollar organizations, but some of the organizations we deal with are pretty large. If not, certainly millions of pounds worth of turnover and up. And but even then, people inserting AI into their workflows is a big stretch for most organizations. They're still struggling with the how do I stop losing my my data out of the door, and
Oh, yeah.
what does good look like? How do I get it to work? And I think part of the challenge is the hype and the news headlines seem to be just stripping away from the reality for most organizations. And I think part of our job, without trying to sound sanctimonious about it, is, we're trying to help people use AI to improve their businesses. That's what we're trying to do, not get rid of jobs. It's about how do you do a better job. But actually, you've got to start somewhere, and we certainly see a lot of people who've dabbled but not really committed. And I think, at some time over the next few years, that has to change as people start getting left behind. And I write about that quite a lot, but I think it does feel to me like lots of organizations have just been struggling. They don't have somebody like the lady at Ambition Institute who's driving the pace, who's forcing people to put their hands on the keyboard and make things work. Creating those AI champions, for want of a better expression, that's pretty tough. If you've got, we've dealt with a number of organisations where the person at the top of the office is a technophobe and doesn't really care for it, and then that's just slows innovation down.
And the thing I say to, I mean, I remember talking to someone in a multi-academy trust who said a long time ago now, but she said, I don't see any first mover advantage particularly in education. And I get that. I really understand. I mean, education is, as you know, our biggest sector for customers. And I understand we don't want our experimenting on our children's futures. But the other side of that argument is how soon is it when a staff member, when you're trying to recruit, asks you about the AI tools that they will have made available to them? I mean, that's not very far away, is it?
No.
What questions do you have for us will be, what AI tools do you have? And if you're there in a multi-academy trust, a college, a local authority, oh yeah, we're not into that. You're not going to get the staff soon. And
Yeah.
likewise, the other way around is if you're a staff member without any AI skills, that is being asked consistently now in interviews.
Mm.
Is, what do you use? Tell us about that. And I think, these things, as an employer, you have a duty to help your staff build skills in using AI. And
Mm.
it is simply not acceptable, in my opinion, to be an employer that says, no, you're not allowed AI. It's
Mm.
effectively like giving them a typewriter and a sheet of paper and saying that's how you work. I mean, it is, isn't it? It's not, I mean, we might be 5 years away, possibly 3 years, maybe, from that kind of analogy, but it is not dissimilar.
Yeah.
And those people that are saying that they don't like it, don't trust it, are always the people that have barely touched it.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it's really frustrating because, I mean, I'm forever in sort of meetings with customers, and there'll be someone when it's a larger group, there's someone who will have that view, and
Yeah.
hey, what about the bias? What about they got some problem? And then you ask them a bit more about their use. They've never touched it, and yet
Yeah.
they're expecting you to take their opinion seriously.
Yeah.
It's like, come on.
What's the best or worst heckle you ever had while presenting?
Gosh, I've had many of the worsts. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, maybe
you're always
not. Maybe
terrified when it.
maybe not for this audience of one. Maybe not for this one.
Well,
But yeah,
I mean, whenever you ask for questions after you're on stage, there's this sort of fear that comes over me, which is mainly not about people to giving me that I don't agree with it thing. I've got reasonable points at least to put back. But when I'm always kind of slightly nervous, there's going to be like a deep AI geek that's going to be kind of like, let me explain and ask me to explain something in real detail. And I can go pretty deep on some things, but my specialism is really deeply, narrowly in RAG AI and understanding how that works. But I was giving this talk to university staff members, and I was showing them bias. As you know, we got some slides that sort of show how bias is surfaced, I guess, from an AI tool with these images. And I showed this, and then he went off, and he was the professor of AI teacher in their uni, and so he came in and
wow.
was like, "Well, I'll tell you how that's happening." And he was talking about the diffusion layer and oh, good. There's the dog. Yeah, the dog's decided she's in charge. And yeah, and I'm just looking at them blankly and going, I have no clue what you're talking about. Sorry, let me just mute and shout at the dog.
Our one listener would really like to hear you shout at Lolly.
Yeah, probably would. Yeah, someone buzzed at the door, but it's probably a delivery for another. So I'll leave it.
Never mind.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, maybe that's it. Maybe that's a good place to stop for our inaugural
Why not?
podcast.
It's good, and
is the dog kicking off?
And we should definitely talk in these. I know you're going to talk to Donald a little bit about Knowledge Flow, the platform, but I think as a history of where we go and what we're doing and what we're focusing on, as you mentioned when we talked about doing these, I think that's really interesting for us, probably really, really deeply geeky for us. But to be able to kind of look back a year or 18 months and think about the things we were grappling with that then.
Yeah.
This week it's Excel embeddings to get proper Excel stuff working, pricing strategy, which has never gone away.
Yeah.
Those are always on our mind. And how on earth do we price this in a way that is sensible, is equitable, and keeping our public sector ethos of we're not here to fleece everybody. We want to drive the transformation, and hopefully that will do well for us because we'll have lots of people using and trusting our stuff. That's our business model, rather than lots of people giving us millions of pounds. All those things. I'd love to get into those next time.
Yeah, well, I think I'm reminded of well, we talked about it would if we'd have started doing this 2 years ago or even a year ago, we would have so much knowledge now. But there was I'm reminded of the college. You stood up on a stage and there was a college who I'll not name, who said, "Oh yeah, we're doing that," and then 3 months later they were on the same on another stage, and they hadn't fixed a fundamental problem. They had run you forecast where they would run into the stand because we'd spent 6 months fixing a problem which they didn't know about and didn't understand. And then
that
the
was just
last
large
time you
document,
spoke to
a
them,
real simple thing, but actually takes some time.
yeah.
Work through. Yeah, I remember now. Yeah, gosh, that was a while ago, but
Yeah, but stuff like that, and come back to what I said right at the very start. This started with you showing us ChatGPT 3.5 on your phone in a restaurant, and
do remember,
if we think about things we can do now, it's amazing. So yeah, hopefully we will share lots of that over the coming weeks. So for our one listener.
yeah,
I hope you
our
enjoyed it. I
audience.
hope you found it useful. Audience, yeah. I hope you found it useful. I hope you found it interesting. And until next week, keep holding on to that thought. Catch you later.
Nice. All right. See you
All right.
later.
Cheers, fella.
Cheers, mate. See you later.